Hello, this is Greg Allison of Green Griggs coming to you late on the night of the 17th of October, 2020. And we're going to talk about the universe and a solo cup. We're going to talk about relativity, quantum physics, and we're going to talk about the power of prayer and meditation and how these things weave together. We're going to cover it from aspects of time, from the far distant past and into the future. And that's something you're going to see in the near future. I'm about to do a presentation on that on Galactic Griggs channel. But we're going to lay all this out. Yeah, I carved that mask myself on a rifle range when I was in the Army at the age of 19 at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Whoops. And you're not going to need a crystal ball to see what I'm going to tell you about at all. No crystal ball at all. So it's going to be interesting. And we're going to start with a solo cup. Now, I, Greg Allison, cover a lot of topics on this channel. The proposition of my channel is if you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. And this does pertain to that. It's got to do with prayer. But we're going to walk through the realms of physics, relativistic and quantum. And through that, we're going to see prayer. And we're going to talk about why we're going to need it now in the near future. And I'm going to allude a little bit to the next session I'll be posting on this channel, which I will record hopefully Sunday afternoon, or sometime during the day Sunday, and post Sunday night, maybe hopefully not this late. Now, if you've not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. Bang the notification bell and click all, because I do videos that cover what's going on in the world. I cover prepping. I cover power grid defense, which is part of prepping. I cover how to live from the wild in terms of eating wild edibles, how to grow your own food organically without having to go to the store and buy things. And worm farming is a big part of that. I do cover worm farming. I do cover growing microgreens, so you can grow food in your living room, even in a city. I'm about to start my microgreen crop back up again. And I cover aquaponics a bit. I have got an aquaponics system. I cover many topics, but they're all interrelated. And they're interrelated to this proposition: if you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. But part of that is keeping your eyes wide open and head on the swivel to know what's coming at you. So I cover a lot of what's going on in the world. And this also pertains to that because there's some things we're going to have to be praying about mightily in the near future. And I'm going to, in this video, explain how that matters and maybe how that works. I'm going to explain physics according to Greg Allison, the universe, the multiverse even, and a solar cup. And the power of prayer and meditation. Now, you may say, Greg Allison, you're crazy. How do you get the universe in a solar cup? Well, I'm going to tell you that the entire multiverse and all its magnificent, immense spread through time, space, and multi-dimensions of the multiverse itself can be viewed at some distance back as an artifact, especially by the greater creator. And that it all exists as an artifact. It is an entity. At some level, far enough removed, it's a thing that you could see. Maybe like a solar cup. And the reason the solar cup makes a great analogy too, that's one, it's a container. It holds things. It's bright. Beholden to my sight. And it's something I can talk from because it shows some aspect of expansion. It's got these little serrated ridges on it, which is beautiful for what I'm about to say. So think about it from the beginning. Let's say there was this thing called a Big Bang. I don't care whether you accept it or not. Let's just say there's some origin for time, space, and matter from which things seem to be expanding. You know, we do look out at the other galaxies and we see them all. If we look at the hydrogen spectrum or various other spectrum that we're used to seeing from atoms, that we see that it's red shifted. which means everything in the universe is flying apart from everything else in the universe. And it's not like from one central location, like everything in the universe, from every perspective in the universe, is flying away from everything else in the universe. The universe is actually expanding in all manner. So it's going, so this has an expansion to it. Now I have done this with funnels also in some of my videos, but the solar cup's a little more fun in this respect. Oh, red ship. Well, red solar cup, right? You want the red pill, the red cup, or the blue cup? I bought a red one today to free your mind. Now, the beauty of this cup is it shows ridges that are concentric all the way across it. Each one is concentric level, a slice. So if this is the beginning right here, and the universe progresses in time and expands or whatever it does over time, just think of this as the beginning of time, and this each point along here at some point in time. If you could take time slices of now across this universe. Let's say you're right here right now, and this is your time slice of now. Then you can see what is the state of that entire universe at your time slice of now, or at least that part that you can see. Just because you can't see it don't mean it's not now, because light travels at the speed of light, which means you can't really see what's on the other side of the universe instantaneously. You're looking to the past when you look at the stars. The farther away you see, the farther the past you see. But that's just what you see. That doesn't mean that something isn't going on the other side of the universe at this point in time, some discrete thing, while something's going on this side of the universe at the same time. Now light is probably expanded much farther than the matter of the expanding universe, because light expands at the speed of light within this universe. And that's part of the nature of this universe, is governed by the permittivity and permeability of free space. Light travels proportional to 1 over the square root of epsilon naught mu naught, which is permittivity and permeability of free space. Greg, don't tell me how to, okay, I'm sorry. It just happens to have the same form and function as the fundamental frequency of a RLC circuit. Which is kind of weird. It's like, okay, resonance frequency circuit has something to do with the translation of the speed of light. That tells you about the nature of the universe. But we won't go into that today any further. Now, the purpose of me bringing all this up is, if, let's say that you're here on the material universe, and you're on this side of the universe, and you're sitting in a park bench. Now, we're going to ignore the idea that you're on stars revolving around galaxies and planets revolving around stars, or on your platter side of the flat earth. Which I don't buy that, but just for the purpose of discussion, we'll entertain it for a second on how you can fit all that in this big multiverse. But let's say you're on this side of the universe, and on this side of the universe, all the time span of the universe is vast. There's a kid sitting over here, and he's sitting on a bicycle. You're sitting on a park bench, and this kid is sitting on a bicycle. Now, this is an example used by others. I did not create this example. And typically, they show some fancy graphic to illustrate this notion of the universe, which I think is totally unnecessary. I think a solar cup is or a funnel is much more fitting, because it gives you the notion of an artifact, which they don't go into in their explanations. So I'm going a lot further than they typically go in their explanations. Now, what they usually will tell you is that speed. We know speed, you and me walking around, jet planes flying around, on Earth in front of us, that you don't notice anything other than Newtonian physics. By Newtonian physics, it's kind of like mathematics. It's kind of like adding and subtracting, maybe simple algebra. But you get into relativistic physics, you're adding terms, which may be more like calculus, but than arithmetic. But in essence, it's this: as your velocity increased, relativistic terms it says as you move, you're dilating time and space a bit. Yeah, the faster you move, the more you change time, and your time changes. At the speeds that we move around, it's not perceptible. Those terms are there, but they're so tiny that we can't perceive them in the short distances of our everyday experience. But across the vast distances of the universe, relativity tells us that this will stack up quite considerably. So much so that if you're on one side of the universe sitting on a park bench, and a kid on the other side of the universe, that's where we're talking relativity. And we're not going to go into the depths of relativity, because that's beyond the scope of my channel. My channel is a channel of preppers and gardeners and worm farmers. So there's no need. And we're talking about the power of prayer here, by the way. So I don't have to go into great detail on this. We can do that on my other channel, Galactic Gigs, at some point in the future. But they say the kid sitting on a bicycle decides to ride toward you in your direction. When he does that, his time slice of now, albeit small, maybe within, thousands and thousands and miles, maybe even a few light years, across the vast distances of the universe, it starts to add up. His time slice of now will actually shift. Within his area, this shift seems so minor, it's not noticeable. That maybe even cross a few galaxies. A galactic Greg would like that. So, but across the vast distance of the universe, it will add up quite considerably to shift his time slice of now into your future, like 300, 400 years. And he stops, swings back. Well, if he turns his bicycle and turns and rides in the other direction, his time slice of now is now 300 years in your past. It means his now, he can't see your past because light has limited speed. His now is suddenly way back in your past, way back according to you. Now, really and truly, in cosmic scale, a few hundred years and diddle. But this has profound meanings, if true. Now, we have measured this time dilation in satellites, and we find it to be true. It takes a satellite, it moves pretty fast, going around the Earth. In low Earth orbit, you're traveling, 17,000 miles per hour, 17,500 miles per hour. Geosynchronous orbit, you're traveling, roughly 25,000 miles an hour. That's about the speed you need to get to the moon. We call speed changes in space parlance delta V, change of velocity. The more you change the velocity, the further up you can go. You go on other planets, you're going about 45,000 miles an hour. A comet comes in about 70,000 miles per hour. Give you an idea. The further out, the more energy, the faster the velocity. So, in long-term comets, even faster. So, the interesting thing here is that we have observed the time dilations, and that seems to confirm the truth in what I am saying here, that this kid's time slice of now changes. What's dramatic to you across the vastness of the universe, that seems rather trivial, but in our timeline, that's very noteworthy and extremely profound. The reason it's profound is what that says is that the future already exists and the past still exists. What I'm saying is this kid's actual slice of what's right now shifts, and it's not where you're at anymore. His now, and his now, whatever is now to him, exists across the entire universe, across that slice of the entire universe. He can't see it all, but it's there. He can't see it all due to the limits and the speed of light, but it's there, unless he's got some other way to see it. There may be other ways. His time slice of now shifts. Greg, that's crazy talk. How can it be? Like I said, it was predicted by Einstein and confirmed with satellites, this time dilation. Gravity dilates time. Speed dilates time. Intense gravitational fields do that. So, yeah, if you get in a spacecraft and travel near the speed of light, you would almost not age. You could travel across the universe and back and come back to Earth and find it ruled by apes, Planet of the Apes. Or whatever. The world might be upside down. You just might not recognize it. It could be so vastly different. So, the reason this matters is this. This says that the past exists and the future exists. Future, oops, I just dropped the future. Yikes! Pick it up. I'm using this because this is a concept I'm developing that I'm going to be showing you in the near future. But I've already done that. It's already happened. From that kid's perspective on a bicycle. Now the bigger dilemma on all that is, if the future already exists and the past already exists and it's all here, then the entire timeline of the universe exists and it's set in stone. That would suggest there's nothing you can do that's truly going to impact the future. Everything that's going to happen will happen just as it happens. That you're just going through everything you do was already done. You have no free will whatsoever. And some of you can say, okay, fine, we're here to experience things. But then that also would imply, if you happen to be a religious person, that some people were born and created just for the sole purpose of going to hell. Oh, and in fact, since according to the Bible, fewer are those that make it. That means the vast majority of souls were created for the purpose of burning for all eternity. And it was already predetermined which ones would burn. So maybe you were created to burn forever. Now, if that were true, God would be a tyrant. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I believe we have free will, that we can exercise change in thought. And that seems to be supported by quantum physics. Now, there are those of you that have heard of quantum physics, and some of them interpret some of that very metaphysically. In fact, there's what's called in quantum physics the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics. And in fact, it's often referred, or sometimes referred to, as the Copenhagen interpretation of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which Heisenberg said you can neither measure both the speed and the absolute location of an object at the same time. But that really wasn't what caused all this discussion of reality. Okay, their interpretation is stranger than that. See, they were doing these experiments, single slit and double slit experiments, and they were trying to look to determine whether an electron was a particle or a wave and other things. They were trying to look for particles and waves. And every time they would set up to measure for a wave, they saw a wave. Every time. Every time they set up to measure for a particle, they saw a particle. Every time. Of course, we electrical engineers just practically said, well, hey, they're all just wave particle packets. So it's just particle and a wave. But that's not how they interpret it with the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. They looked at it like this. They said, wow, it all depends on how we look at it, how we observe it, whether it's the speed, the location in Heisenberg, or the slit experiment array. We get what we look for. It's the looking that determines the reality. So they thought that all reality was some nebulous sphere of probability. They called it a wave function. But when you looked at something, then you look into it, and at that moment, in that state, the wave function collapses to produce the reality you're looking for. It's strong metaphysical implications. A lot of people in metaphysics use this to buttress their beliefs in metaphysics or their particular slant on metaphysics. I, for one, don't fully accept that, but I think there's something to it. Now, it has the implications that at every quantum instant of time, everything that can happen does happen. It is happening, if it can happen at all. And so the universe at every quantum instant of time would branch off in every direction possible. Whether buck steps left, buck steps right. Now, I think there's something to that, but not in such an unbounded way. There was a competitive theory. It was developed by de Broglie. Now, when I was in college, I had to do had to be able to derive. I think we did on a couple of sheets of paper. It took, a good part of maybe half an hour or something like that. I don't remember. We had to write a lot of equations on it. It took 2 sheets of paper to do it. We had to be able to derive, just sit down with a blank piece of paper and derive the de Broglie wave equation for the transport of an electron across a p-n junction in a diode. Now, P and N is whether the silicon is doped on the positive or negative end of the spectrum electrically. We also did calculations of hole current back in the day. Hole current's kind of come and gone, but I believe hole current is back in vogue. And it did work with the equations, by the way. Hole current is positive charges that move inside a silicon substrate or any semiconductors, I might say. We won't go into that today. But why I'm getting into this is de Broglie, he wasn't quite buying that. His interpretation, the de Broglie-Braun theory, is also known as the pilot wave theory. And basically he said, the whole universe is actually more deterministic, that there is a configuration that's actually in existence of particles and impacting each other and developing a history, case histories, and move forward in time, and we just don't see it. So he wasn't buying if the tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, didn't make a sound, right? And oh, by the way, he's using one of the equations at the heart of this was an equation by Schrodinger. You may remember Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat, you put it in a box, and you have a random number generator that has a 50-50 chance of voting up or down, and at some particular point in time, and when it votes, it either does or doesn't break a capsule. And so you got this box, and there's a cat in it. And the capsule is poison, cyanide or whatever, and supposedly it randomly 50-50 kills the cat. And but so Schrodinger was actually making fun of the Copenhagen interpretation when he came up with this. And the funny thing is, people in Copenhagen interpretation kind of took that as reality. He was saying, well, what you're saying is like, this cat is both alive and dead until you open the box. And of course, the quantum guys said, yeah, that's exactly right. And so they loved it. And it was meant to be a sarcastic slap at them, and instead they grabbed it. Yeah, yes, that's true. It's alive and dead until we open that box. Schrodinger goes, face palm. This does count for the power of prayer. We're getting there. Pardon me, we're getting there. So basically, de Broglie got convinced to kind of go along with the Copenhagen guys until Braun rediscovered his theory back in the 50s and started working on it again. And now it's starting to fall in more and more favor. And there's some other interpretations that is showing potential for a more deterministic nature of the universe than is allowable under the wide open Copenhagen interpretation. But it doesn't rule out the multiverse, the multidimensional aspects that could be in the universe. And so maybe there's a little truth to both. I kind of think of it like maybe in time, if you have time splitting off in just all these different directions, every quantum instance of time, that the reality might be more akin to alternate timelines being like the flow going down a river. You got all these little streams of water parks flowing side by side. And each flow path is a timeline. And if you go from one timeline to the next, you're not going to notice any different. But if you start going way out, you've hit a boulder, you went over the falls. Time starts diverging. In our universe, it's whether the bug steps left or right. If you're on a few alternate timelines, a few clicks over, you're not going to know the difference. The time kind of does this a little bit going down the timeline. If it kind of slithers back and forth, you won't notice it for the most part. But as you start deviating a little bit, maybe you get Mandela effect. I said maybe. Or it might get more interesting. You start deviating a little further. The outcomes of wars in the past may be different. Maybe the Nazis on, or maybe you get further enough out, the British beat the snot out of us. You get further out, the dinosaurs are still roaming around. There's none of us here. Or Earth may be cooked cinder, or maybe our sun, something catastrophic happened, and you get further and further out, and then further and further out, the universe don't exist. Or better yet, you hit the banks of the river. So maybe all time in the multiverse, it may be huge and infinite from our perspective that we can't tell the difference, but it may be bounded and headed down a course to the ocean or wherever it shall go. And maybe that accounts for prophecy, how there's grand events are going to happen, but within that, the state, the reality of individuals and nations may still be alterable, as in the case of Jonah in the Bible. Jonah was told to prophesy the outcome of the city, and he didn't want to do it. And when he got swallowed by the whale and came back, they found him and got him out, and he gave his prophecy, and the dire consequences predicted did not happen. So the lesson in that, biblically speaking, is that you can change the outcome of a city or a nation by prayer, by faith, by belief. That was a lesson in there. And that may be supported because, like I said, if all time is one timeline, God would be a tyrant. But God tells us to pray. We're told to pray. And many religions teach meditation and prayer. And meditation and prayer both seem to be effective. The power of intention seems to be effective. It's some levels, no matter what faith engages in. I am not a religious channel here. This is not about religion, but there's something we need to be praying about very earnestly in the near future. So that's why I'm going into this video today, is to talk about the power of prayer inside the universe in a solar cup, or the multiverse in this case, because what we're talking about is a universe that splits every quantum instant into a myriad of directions. I would say they're not totally unbounded. Everything that could happen is not going to happen, because some meek mild guy and is probably never going to jump up and perform karate and kill everybody at the table in any of these universes, because it's not in its nature. Things are not in the nature of somebody, probably will never happen in any of these multiverses. I mean, say, well, hey, you have a different nature over here on this side. Well, whatever, you can argue that the cows come home. I think that there's something to be said for each theory, that we have a universe that has multiple directions you can go in. And that this is, let's talk about the power of intention. One of the big teachers of power of intention was Dr. Dyer, Wayne Dyer. And he wrote several books on it. Now, some people challenge him at many levels, but basically he taught that what you thought about is what you got. If you think you're poor and you're praying not to be poor, you're still thinking about being poor, so you're going to remain poor. So if you're thinking of poverty, man, I need to get out of this poverty, you're going to stay in poverty because you're thinking about poverty. The universe gives you what you think about, it gives you what you ask for. And the universe being, they use the term universe in that line of thinking a lot, but really it's the greater creator. It's and I believe the greater creator is outside the universe. And I may go into that in a future video. Why are we here? I've actually talked about that on the Leak Project. I have said that the greatest dilemma isn't that we're here, it's why are we here. It's why are we as spiritual beings living inside of a physical universe? That's the big dilemma. It's not why is there a universe, how it got here. It's why are we as spiritual beings living inside this physical universe? That's a whole other question. So maybe it is so that we can learn and grow and have experiences, but try to create a better future as we move forward. We have a lot of fractures in our personalities as human beings that cause a lot of problems, and we've got to learn to cope with them. All that said, and go see my videos on a nuke in every pot, and the video where I talk about also talking from the perspective of number 2 pencil, talking about the fragility of civilization. I think these videos really underscore why we're going to need to be praying a lot in the near future. So back to the solar cup. The solar cup illustrates that, in my opinion, the way I'm explaining it, it's not just the universe, but the multiverse. And with the power of intention, what I see is happening is your mind is actually playing like an 8-track video or 8-track. You remember 8-track music players where the whole tape rotated, but the head would move back and forth and listen to whatever track you selected. The whole tape was playing, but you selected which track you were on. And I think maybe that is what the power of prayer does. It moves you down that path, splitting out from the multiverse that is more in favor for you. It moves your mind, your consciousness into that. And we can do it collectively as a people, as a group, as a nation, and change the outcome of the path we're heading down. And in fact, God commands us to pray. So I think that is why. It's because he knows we have these options, and he wants us to be proactive in creating this universe and doing it according to his plan and moving it in a positive direction. Now, you may not believe in God, but and a lot of people that don't believe in God still meditate and believe in the power of intention. Now, you may be totally, have the whole universe is just particles, nothing else, just particles. random particles, randomly created, and the whole existence just happened randomly because pure nothingness, pure symmetry is unstable. I read that in Scientific American when I was about 18, back in 78. Maybe it was 79, I think. Something like that. There was an article called The Asymmetry, might have even been 80. There was an article in Scientific American called The Asymmetry Between Matter and Antimatter. And I took great interest in that. You know, it's just great puzzle in physics. And, you know, they basically boiled down the article at the end. It was one of those real long articles for a kid who, you know, still had a lot of college ahead of him to digest, but it basically said we're here because nothing is not stable. Put in a nutshell. And maybe that's how the very beginning got begot at some level, somewhere way back in many other successive chains of the multiverse. But I would say that it all ties, I could talk endlessly about this and talk about how it can play back around, how the very end and the very beginning both exist and at all times, and how it may actually bend back around. But, you know, that's a whole different topic, But the whole universe, for the whole universe to exist as an entity, it does have to have a beginning and an end, right? Universe to multiverse. Now we're talking about a multiverse in time in which things switch and move around, you know, which you can play whatever into whatever track of reality that you play your consciousness down. And that means what you think about is very important. What you pray about may be even more important. But you are a part of choosing and creating the reality that you move down. That is not anti-biblical, nor is it anti-physics, because the multiverse theory, the theory of the quantum interpretation of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, quantum mechanics, whatever you want to call it, the old slit experiment, or the pilot wave theory, may all coexist and may all help explain each other. Because if you don't have a multiverse, you would have to say God's a tyrant, because you don't have free will. If relativity is true. Throwing out the ifs and throwing out the qualitatives, don't say Greg Allison said this and that, because there's a lot we don't know yet. But we do know that we have measured the time dilation in satellites. Some of you don't believe in satellites. Oh, well, what can I say? Do you believe in hourglasses? Do you believe the sand has poured down? At some point, the time that I flipped this over and initiated this draining of sand still exists. Your grandmother is still giving you a cookie somewhere in the multiverse. Rest assured, she is still there, smiling at you, as her grandmother is still giving her a cookie somewhere in this multiverse too. So rest assured that everybody that's ever lived is still alive. Everybody that will ever live is alive already. But there's many different versions of that, and you play your consciousness through the one that you focus on, the one you repeat, the one you say, the one you pray, the power of prayer. And the prayer of prayer very much can affect this world. And so one of the things we're going to pray about is the people on this side of the world taking the whole world, and we'll pray that that don't happen, if you know what I mean. There's a certain political party dominating a certain region of the world. Oh, look, Antarctica's green here. Looks like global warming, right? That must be. There's no Florida on this map. There's North America, no Florida. Yikes. Yeah, this is a global warmed world. All the continents are green, even the desert, so that's a good part. But, yeah, this is just a little stress ball that happens to look like the world. I've got another one here that looks just like the moon. And this is my Grumman cup, back when I worked on something called the Space Station Freedom. For Fred Hayes, he was on Apollo 13, and he flew around this and barely survived to get back to this. Some of you have a hard time with that, but okay, whatever. We're going to talk about the power of prayer again. So I'm going to do a video Sunday. I'm going to talk about a huge threat to our future. And it's a multidimensional threat. There's many threats out there, but I'm going to focus on one aspect of it that's huge, that either we will deal with it or it will deal with us or our descendants. And one of the key methods that we have to dealing with it is prayer, meditation. So in that video, I will refer back to this video. And I may do a follow-up video on top of all that to talk about the different ways to deal with this thing that's before us on the train track, the lights coming at us, which aren't the end of the tunnel, it's the train. So how do we deal with this train? We got a train coming at us. We actually got more than one train coming at us, but there's one that's really big and it's growing and gaining in speed and momentum. And we're going to have to deal with that train. And that train does involve a certain region and a certain political party that runs that region, which of course I was never talked about on this channel. They're good people in every land, good people of every race, color, creed, and faith. They're smart people in every one of those, people with good hearts. And we need to be able to reach out person to person. It's always the powers that control that take us down the abyss toward great mayhem, that bring all kind of consternation to our civilization. They don't really serve us, they serve themselves. So we got to find ways to deal with it. There may be lots of ways to deal with this, but some of this is imminent. There's some things, I just did a video about the loss of our power grid, how that could be imminent. So yeah, power of prayer is something we need to exercise right now. It's one thing you can do that costs you nothing but a moment of your time, your heart, and your mind. If you focus your heart and mind on something, even if the prayer isn't what did it, it can make your subsequent actions count. But I do actually believe in the power of prayer. I believe in a greater creator. I do believe in a multiverse. My greater creator is big enough that he's bigger than this entire multiverse. And this multiverse is, to a human mind, incomprehensibly big in time and space, but it's also even more so bigger through multiple, almost infinite divisions within the time and space of the solar cup. What's in here to the human mind would be mind-boggling. Infinitely, infinities of infinities, infinitely vast. But to the greater creator, it's an artifact, it's a thing. And at some distance as you back away from it, that's how you can see it all. And that is why it's important that you pray, because you have choices of which track down this multiverse you go. You can pick a better one. Collectively can. The power of prayer works more effectively when it's collective. That's why back in December, we had some prayer sessions. We prayed to stop the world. Actually, the world did stop. Holy smoke, did we get what we asked for? There's that old saying, be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. We weren't a big prayer group. We just had a few people praying, but holy smoke, we specifically prayed to stop the world. Yeah, it sure did. All right, all that said, we're looking for peace, prosperity for all, so that we may dream big and achieve great things. And you're going to see what this is in the video, not too far into your future. If you watch my Galactic Grace channel, which I'm going to be putting this on, and it's going to knock your socks off. It will blow your hat off. Yes, if your head is pointy. So there you go. My friends, we live in interesting times of the Chinese proverbial sort, which of course was a curse. May you live in interesting times. We're there. We're there in spades. We are living in it hits the fan light. And we may be moving rapidly toward it hits the fan heavy. Our prayers may be the levee to keep back the flood of mayhem. So I encourage you all to pray, to meditate, to think good thoughts, to think your way into a better future, and to work it. You know, there were those that wrote this book. What was it called? The Wish, the whatever. Showed a seal on the envelope or something like that. And it was all about, it was kind of about power of intention. Basically, it was say, hey, draw little pictures and stick them on refrigerator magnets. That'll be your future. Well, I also think that your future has a way of showing up. It's kind of like that old TV game show where there was always 3 doors and you had to pick a door. The door may open for you, but you have to walk through it. It's not just going to come out and give you everything inside. You got to walk through that door. When that opportunity avails itself, you've got to walk through it. So you've got to be proactive on your side too. What was that called? The Wish? I don't remember. But anyway, some of you may know what I'm talking about. But you got to be proactive on your side. And that's what I believe in. And so along that route, I've started an organization called the Freedom Restoration Foundation. We've got good members in it already. We have a board of directors and officers. We're across the United States. We've got people coming in from other countries also. I've been asking everybody to email me at hal5space.org and put freedom in the subject line, so I'll know you're interested in that. If you're interested in joining our tribe network, put tribes in the subject line for survival tribes. Now, I will be setting up a website in the not too distant future. I've been exceedingly busy. I've just finished ginormous tax exercise, in which I had $86,000 in receipted expenses. And I have a day job, and I'm nutty enough. I got YouTube channels on top of that. So, my friends, I have been a busy puppy. And so that's, but I have volunteers working this other stuff too. But that's just fine. We haven't got our website set up yet. But we do have a Facebook page for the Freedom Restoration Foundation. So check it out. Just look up Freedom Restoration Foundation on Facebook. All the links will be in my show notes and in my pin notes I'll put on this video. And it's already getting really late here. Maybe in the morning before I get this video uploaded. So also, you can support this channel by clicking the links in the show notes to things like my Patriot Supply, where we got a special run where you can get $100 off a 4-week supply of food that lasts 25 years. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you select it, you will be a winner because the price is great. It lasts a long time. It comes in these nice little buckets that you can carry around and store easy. If you need a bug out, grab the bucket and go. And you got inside of one bucket, you got a 2-week supply. 2 of them gives you a month supply. It's lightweight. It's not something that's going to be so hard to lug around like some of the other things that come in much bigger containers. It's hard to transport. These are easy. They're easy to move and move fast should you need to do it. And the price is phenomenally great. And it has a good selection of food. It's not, just crackers and, sea rats or MREs. This is regular food. It just happens to be freeze dried, so it makes it lighter weight, so you can store it, so that you can move it as you need to. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Plus, also you need to grow your garden. Check my links to True Leaf Market. So, all that said, I wish everyone the best. Stop tonight, reflect, say prayers for the peace and prosperity of humanity. I will probably be doing another prayer session with everybody in the not too distant future to try to meditate and pray us toward a better outcome for what's coming at us. Do bear in mind that I don't do this selecting any given faith, that when I do these things, it's open faith to anyone of any faith or no faith. You can just meditate or go out and just be good in the world. I say, go out and shine your love light into the world. Go out and do something good. That's what I urge you to do now. Go out tomorrow and do something good for somebody. Do it in the name of love and prosperity. And remember, always remember, and tell me that, Greg, I saw you hold up a dollar bill, so I know you watched this one. So the whole purpose is use your dollar bill as your ultimate vote. And this is one which you can vote often. So vote local. Vote for your local artisans, your local tradesmen, the small guy, this mom and pop shop, not the big companies. This is how we keep globalism at bay and many of these other things that are coming at us. All right, my friends. Well, all that I'm going to say, thank you for watching.